Karen, I want to say that we had a great connection, I think, when we first got together for about 20 minutes or so. And I enjoyed hearing what you had to share about your journey and what you're doing with other people. So I'm glad you came on to the podcast to share that with everybody else that's listening. So why don't we just dive in a little bit and you just open up and share who you are and what you're doing right now, and then we can discuss how you got to where you are today.
Thanks so much. I appreciate being here. It's such a privilege because I have a message I'm very passionate about, and as many people as can get this, I know it'll help them and change their lives. I'm an artist, art teacher, mentor to many, I'm an actor, a filmmaker, and author. I write the textbooks that I use teaching in college. So it's been a creative journey of my own, and I now call myself a creativity specialist because, like a lot of people, we all got online. We used to be all in person, and, it wasn't as hard for me as a visual artist as for some people, but it was an adjustment for sure. Yeah.
So now you're enjoying being online. Is that what you're saying?
I know it's surprising, and especially in my generation, to find this technology that is so unique to us, so helpful and incredible. Like, you can reach people beyond your neighborhood, right? I was teaching homeschooling and being the homeschool art teacher for decades, even filmmaking. But now I teach filmmaking to a group of Ugandan youths. Thank goodness for internet when they have it. We're getting ready to shoot our second movie, and I'm their mentor teacher and get to do it, via online. So can't beat that. And there's so many advantages to the technology that we have these days. And what when having to pivot, from doing live classes, even in the college classes, moving online, it's caused me to do a lot of research, because working with students of all ages and being an artist myself, I found a lot of the benefits of doing art for myself and for my students. My husband's a musician, my sons are musicians. We're a very artsy family. They're all actors. So we've got a lot of very right brain talent in my family. And I started studying about left brain, right brain. What does it mean to be a creative? And is it just for those of us who are, artistes? Are we the only ones that have these developed brains? And I'm a lefty, half my family's left-handed. We actually do have different brain function as a result of being left-handed. Some of the people that I've worked with through the years had brain injuries that caused them to not be able to use their dominant hand, their right hand, and I've taught them how to draw and paint and write left-handed, and it actually rewires the brain. And I have read the studies, and it's fascinated me to realize that, we are all creatives, and we were born that way. Half our brain is totally available for creativity. But, we are in a culture where left brain skills and abilities are promoted and tested and trained, and they're measurable, being a critical thinker and logical and orderly and timely, which are all wonderful things, wonderful skills, and you can be tested on it. And what have you memorized? And, get through the tests, and you can find jobs that test in left brain. But what about the right brain? It's been trivialized in so many ways, at least trivialized. We don't realize what benefits we all can garnish from utilizing and training up and catching our right brain up to our left brain. So what does that look like? If you're not an artist, you're not a musician, you're not a dancer, what does it look like? So that's what I started really studying. What can just everybody do? If we're all wired for creativity, what does that look like? How can we, and the best plan is when left brain, right brain's working together. So that's the goal, is all these neural connections that help you think outside the box, problem solve. And so I started doing these studies, and one of them, if you don't mind me telling a few stories, do you like to sing? Are you a singer?
I sing to myself for the most part.
Okay. All right. Great. How about in the shower?
Sure.
Okay. Well, let me tell you what you're doing when you sing in the shower, according to these experts. So there you are, rub-a-dub-dub, scrubbing in the tub, right? You're not thinking about your work or thinking about problems. You're just doing your thing, singing along, and you don't realize that what you're doing is incorporating that left brain, right brain, creating new neural connections. You get out, you're feeling good because you've just been releasing serotonin, the happiness chemical. So you feel good, you're nice and toasty in your towel. And all of a sudden an idea comes to you. Maybe it's a phrase you hadn't been able to figure out with one of your podcast descriptions, or maybe it's some lines for the book or a chapter title for a book you're working on, or maybe it's just solving a problem from work or a relationship. It just kind of pops into your brain. Well, where did that pop up come from? It's because you've been operating left brain, right brain connections, and that creativity happened naturally. Singing in the shower. So you and all your listeners sing in the shower all you want. For me, it was in the car. Nobody else in the car.
Yeah, I'm more in the car too.
I'm doing the Barbra Streisand. People, nobody can turn on the radio and drown me out, right? I don't want by myself. Maybe the people in the car going like, "What is she on?" No, but it's just finding out that art and the arts in general make our life happier, more fulfilling, more satisfying, and smarter. Even Albert Einstein is quoted as saying, creativity is intelligence having fun. Because how many adults need more fun in their life? Usually it's people like me that finally have little grandchildren we can play with, right? You forget how much fun it is to swing or do go to the park. And that's as simple as engaging your creativity can be, is taking a stroll. Noticing your surroundings, and I'm not talking about a Fitbit walk where you're counting your steps or, being aerobic. Those are great too. This is when you're just noticing the sky and the color of the flowers, maybe smelling the scents of the season, or hearing the birds tweet, or, greeting neighbors, walking their dogs, and you're engaging in that moment. And in that moment, because movement is all left brain, but in noticing and focusing is right brain. So you're building these connections. Again, you're releasing serotonin. You feel good. You don't have to run or jog heavily to really get some wonderful benefits from being just on a stroll with yourself, or alone, or take one of your animals. So you got a visitor. Or alone. You can take your sketchbook or not, or take your journal or not. It doesn't have to be in a direct artistic activity to get the benefits. You don't even have to be good at it to get the benefits.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be long either, right?
20 minutes. I mean, some of them say 15, some say 18, some say 20. So between 15 and 20 minutes is all it takes. So that excuse, I don't have time to be creative. You got 20 minutes, to be good for yourself. Sing in the shower. There you can combine a couple of activities at once. When I started this program called Art as Self-Therapy, Wellness Through Creativity, and I was engaging both, what I've learned as an artist and an art teacher with what I'm learning from the science being good for people, is what can everybody do if they're all wired for creativity? And how do you know what you can be good at if you don't know? I say, look at when you were 5 and 6 years old. They say they've done studies, and they say that 98% of 5 and 6 year olds are creative geniuses, but only 2% of adults. Mm. So what happened to that creative gifting, that genius that we had as little children? It got lost, as I was describing, a school system that really elevates the left brain thinking to the detriment very often of right brain thinking and right brain giftings. It's harder to measure. Is it a good drawing? Is it a good dance? It's hard to it's so subjective that I know for a lot of school systems, they just want yes, no answers, fill in the blank. But, and these are not easy categories. But also, it's a sensitive part of our brain. Our right brain is intuitive, inventive, imaginative, and it doesn't do well with criticism, which of course is left brain thinking. And too many people had somebody tell them very young, you can't color, you're coloring outside the lines, and tear up their paper. I can't tell you how many people have told me that's happened to them. Or you can't sing. I can relate to that one. There went my Broadway aspirations right there. But, other things, comments from peers, that whole saying, sticks and stones may break my bones and words will never hurt me. That's a big fat lie. Words do hurt you, and especially if they're from somebody in authority. Now, I was a teenager when I went to art school, and I had a hard decision because I love theater so much. So I went to school where I could do both art and theater. And so there I am. I'm doing, I came there with really well-developed drawing skills. I had good drawing instruction. And I went to school with a lot of very talented people, but I felt like I could keep up until I started painting class. Well, my professors hated my paintings. They used 4-letter words to describe my paintings. I like to paint people. I love people and I love places, and I wanted them to look like the people and look like the places, and they wanted me to delve deeper and do more abstractions, and I didn't even know who the heck I was. I didn't know how to be that deep, and they just so discouraged me. They didn't just discourage me, they devastated me, because their evaluations took all the wind out of my hopeful sails as a painter. They told me I was a 3-dimensional artist. Well, I still do love 3-dimensional art. I went to graduate school in sculpture and ceramics, and I still love that. But I really always wanted to paint. So I went to another school, took a couple more painting classes, and they came to the same conclusion. You're not a painter. So I came into agreement with their assessment. They're the experts, right? And every time I went, I really want to paint, I'd start painting, and I'd reach that point of my skill weakness, really is what it was. And I'd stop and say, well, they were right. I'm just not a painter. I'll go back to Mike Clay. Until I got a mentor, somebody who literally took me by the hand and taught me how to paint. He had been to the Chicago Art Institute back in the day when they still taught those fundamentals. And it changed my life. It didn't just make me finally really, truly a good painter. It made me a better teacher, because those are the things that I incorporate into training my students, is what I learned from him. And what I learned about the sensitivity of our right brain. So when you're in that shower singing or in your car singing alone, you're there because you're not going to be saying, oh man, you missed that note. Even if you hear it, you know it. You're not criticizing yourself because you're having too much fun belting out the song. Well, that's the way it's supposed to be. We're supposed to be able to touch base with what did we love when we were 5? So I always start with that question. What did you love to do when you were 5, John?
You're going to ask me that?
I'm going to ask you that. You're going to, come on.
I thinking of what I was doing when I was 5 is tough, but I would say I enjoyed being outside in the backyard, probably digging up worms or something like that. I can't remember that far, but that's what I would say. And so that being said, I still carry the stuff over like that today. Like I would go on a hike or go fishing, and if I can be around some kind of body of water, it's just awesome. Not just to see the water, but to see the trees, the nature around it. And for me, it's trying to find the small things, like baby turtle or something, something that people can't really pick up on. So that's what I try to do. But that's what I would say, for me, go back, if I was to think that far back.
Good. That's really good. Yeah, because that's absolutely engaging your right brain. And this is what people don't understand. When you're there, even if you're there to fish or to swim or to boat or to hike, you're still there to enjoy the air, to enjoy the views, to enjoy the scenery. And that's all appreciation that comes from the right side of your brain. And that brings you home. You feel energized. You've released all that serotonin and all the endorphins and dopamine and all these really wonderful happiness chemicals. And so even just spending 20 minutes a day, we're taking a walk in your neighborhood, or, where you can be outside. A lot of people, I know for me, when we had our basset hound, I was the morning walk girl. So I got my morning walk in with the basset hound, and, wow, you don't notice things as much when you are more the late night person as when you're the early morning. Gee, there's dew still on the ground, and look at the sparkly. Yeah, it's part of being human. It is a great part of being human. And as I look at AI, and I do appreciate AI, I try to utilize it in certain regards. I use ChatGPT. Try not to be afraid of this modern technology, but it can't. It really can't replace humans. It can't replace our soul, the part of our right brain thinking that is in touch with our imagination, where we can put things together in new ways. That's not what a computer can do. We're uniquely human. We're uniquely human in that a creature that we appreciate beauty. When you're looking at those trees or the turtles, you're getting amazed and just seeing nature. My mom and I were on a river. We saw a river otter, and we just had the most fun just watching this otter dive and come back up with, cracking, whatever he was finding down there, crabs, I don't know what, and just enjoying, watching nature happen. It is good for you, and it is necessary to live a really beautiful, fulfilled life, is to engage that right brain.
That is so cool. Yeah, I would love to see an otter sometime. I haven't seen one in the wild. Yeah. So I mean, so for the AI part, I just wanted to talk a little bit about that, because I was playing around with it right before we were jumping on here, and I think it's a tool to use because you're going to be left behind if others are using it and you're not, right? Even if it's just a little bit. I agree with you that you have to use your creative side with it as well. So like, I might have an idea and it might spit something out quickly for me, and I go, that's exactly what I wanted. I just couldn't think of it right away, right? And it helps you progress quicker. And then you can move on. And then, so the way I look at it is I can create something faster to help others, provided it is something that I was looking for. That's how I've appreciated the AI part, as far as not being human anymore and having all these videos that are AI and stuff. Yeah, I after a while, that's going to become too much. But what is? I mean, you suggested like the shower and stuff. I've heard. I think it's Jim Quick. He says something about changing your toothbrush hand or whatever, and from right to left, and just doing something like that. Is there something small like that too that you would suggest doing, even if it's just not like a 20-minute walk or something?
Well, when I teach drawing, the first thing I do is try to create a safe space, because that right brain is so sensitive. We don't want to let what I call sometimes a left brain critic or bully. You can't do this, whatever it is, if what you wanted was to be a dancer, well, you're not going to be probably a New York City prima ballerina at this point in life. That doesn't mean you can't take dance classes. And so you create a safe space around the activity that you're engaging in, especially if it's something you haven't done in a long time or you haven't gained skills in. If you can shut down that left brain enough to try it. I don't let my students, when they're first drawing, look at their paper at all. Once they put the marker down, they can't even use a pencil. They just look at the object they're drawing. We start with a hand on the paper, draw around it, just like when you're kindergarten drawing around your hand. That's a contour line drawing. Now hold that hand up in front of your face and just look at your hand and let your eye and your hand move together. If you could throw and catch a ball, then you can do this, because you're doing the same thing when you throw and catch a ball, which we do as soon as our babies can sit up. We start rolling a ball to them, right, for them to learn to throw and catch. And so you're throwing and catching. How far do you throw it? Where do you have to put your hands to catch it? Those are all skills you use in drawing. So if you can do that, you can draw. So if you ever wanted to learn to draw, you can. I'm telling you, you can. And so drawing, painting, really think about, what did you love? It is still there. It's, I'm 70. My husband's we're in our 70s, and we're having the time of our life, because things that we couldn't do while we were raising children, while we were building careers, we have more time for now. Things that really bring joy. We're working on more books. We're working on, we have a gathering of artists and musicians in our home that we do worship. We have so much fun. And so these are things that it's not too late to incorporate into your life.
That's great. Yeah, I'm glad you shared that about your age and stuff, and that you're doing this at a later age in life. Yeah, I had a quick question. Do you think this has anything to do with people being depressed and have anxiety?
No kidding. Absolutely. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind. The stress and anxiety, all those raised up stress hormones, cortisol. You need cortisol for ambition, but as much cortisol as people are raising is just, it actually causes disease. It proves to cause disease. Now, I'm going to tell you a couple of stories, and this ought to encourage your listeners, because these are true to life stories. One is a young man who had ADHD and dyslexia and was being homeschooled and failing and depressed. I mean, about as depressed as a young person can be, feeling completely like a failure. His mom brought him to my studio, and in a very short amount of time, he found his niche in creating sculpture and drawing and painting. And that success just changed his life. I started entering his work and other of my students' work in a large youth art competitions, and they would win ribbons, and they would get that kind of, even attention locally from doing well. And he was able to, get the courage he needed to, go for ways to overcome his brain detriments to graduate from high school, which he really never imagined would happen for him. And we were all excited. He did a beautiful batik in my studio that won not just first place, but best in show in a competition. He won money. And then tragedy struck. He had a brain infection that caused a stroke and paralyzed him on the right side of his body. Matter of fact, in 4 months, they had to replace his skull with plastic. They didn't really expect him to live, but he did. But when he left the hospital, he couldn't talk. He couldn't write. He couldn't use his right hand. He could barely walk. He was on a walker literally dragging the right side of his body. Here he is, 18 years old. Well, his mom brought him back to the studio. And I got to say, I'm not a trained art therapist. I want to be clear about this. We're talking artist here, art teacher, right? I did have a great deal of love and affection for this young man. And he came into the studio, and I said, well, your left hand works. Let's try it. And sure enough, all those neural connections he had already been building in the arts were still working for him. And now he started being able to talk and walk. And I get a call from his neurosurgeon. Now, this guy, he says, I've never called anybody's art teacher before, lowly art teacher that you are, but what are you doing with David? Because he is getting healing on the right side of his body. I said, I don't know. I'm just teaching him to draw and paint left-handed. He said, well, don't stop because it's working. And I have to say now, 10 years later, I saw this young man last week. Of course, his family were good friends. He's got his sense of humor intact. He's not depressed. You wouldn't look at him and think, oh, that kid's got a plastic skull. He can talk, he can walk. He's still stronger with his left hand than his right hand. And that's the other thing the neurosurgeon said. He's stronger with his weak hand than I am. And I'm a surgeon. So I knew, this is so cool. Some of that is what drew me to finding the research about the power of the arts. And, another story, this is an older student who took to sculpture, and she was doing fantastic when she got a late stage breast cancer diagnosis that they were giving her 6 months life. And I was working then at a huge art project. I was a whole room installation for a big arts festival in Charleston, South Carolina. And I said, I need help. Why don't you come to the studio and work with me and help me make all these pieces? And she's like, Karen, that's in 9 months. I don't even know if I'm going to be here in 9 months. I said, well, you'll leave a legacy for your family. What could it hurt? We had the most fun. It was called Taste and See Sweet Shop. We were making cookies, candies, cupcakes, cakes and stands. And we even bought chairs in the thrift store to refinish and to put silk seats on. And we made a whole room of porcelain cakes and cookies and candies. People come in and they were ready to have a piece of candy. We did, so we spent time in the studio. She's going through the medical treatments the whole time. And she's like, well, how do we make dark chocolate versus light chocolate versus, and we just had so much fun solving those problems, making all these things. And she just did some beautiful things. Yes, she was there 9 months later. She was in remission 9 months later. Now, again, years later, she is completely cancer-free. Now, she credits, and so does David's family, with art bringing healing to their life. And I'm working with someone with Parkinson's who lost use of his right hand because of the shaking. And he had been painting and drawing in his retirement, was now very depressed. And so I said, well, I don't know anything about Parkinson's, but you can use your left hand. And again, this is somebody who's been building up those left brain, right brain connections. And in a short, I mean, literally in weeks, he was drawing strongly with his left hand and even being able to use his right hand. So I can't explain it other than to say we were born this way to use creativity in our lives, just like you. So there you are, you're podcasting, right? You've got to deal with all the left brain things of technology, scheduling, order, timeliness. You have all that going on, but at the same time, you're creating content that's never been made before. You've got that left brain, right brain thing happening, and it really produces our best brilliance. It helps with brain fog, with memory issues. There's so many things that it does that I don't even think we've begun to explore how much more brilliant we can be if we purposefully, even 20 minutes a day, do something that utilizes our right brain.
I like it. And I liked how you shared, use me as an example. So it made me think about people working in the workplace then. Most of them, it's like structured, right? So how much more productive could you probably be if you were more creative?
It's interesting you say that because they did studies on men and women that took cigarette breaks every couple hours at work. And they were finding benefits, mental benefits for these people that took that break. Now, this is not promoting cigarette smoking. It's promoting what are they doing for that 15 minutes outside? Talking to whoever else is out there, looking around, seeing the weather, hearing the birds tweet, whatever. They're actually doing that. They're engaging left brain, right brain. And it was causing more benefit than those that didn't take the break at all. Now they're saying, don't spend more than 2 hours in front of that computer without getting up and take a walk around, stroll around the building or whatever, even inside. Go into the coffee machine. People gab at the coffee machine. What are you doing? You're engaging with people, and it is good for the brain. It's good for the body. It's good for our emotions and brings healing to us. It's pretty exciting. I created a pop-up podcast for people if they want to learn more or get more ideas on ways to be creative. It's called www.getcreativewithkaren.com. And that's a free pop-up, and they can maybe, I challenge the listeners to that, to pick something to be creative at. There's lots of ways, like gardening, if you're anybody that loves to garden, cooking, trying new recipes, or gosh, I don't have that spice. What if I put this spice in? You think my family will like that? And that's, again, the whole point is engaging left brain, right brain, and not being critical about it unless somebody doesn't like your food, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
No critic. I said, no criticism zone, no critiquing. No. You don't have to eat it.
That's right. That's hard to do sometimes. A lot of people have a hard time or taking criticism. So that shuts them down,
Absolutely. It does. It really does. And one of the things that I really have to help people is get over the paralysis of perfectionism. Because guess what side of the brain that is? Left brain. That perfectionism, like I can't do this unless I'm perfect at it. It's sad, but when you get to be my age, you realize you can't be perfect at anything, so you might as well have fun doing it.
That's right. So I agree with the whole perfect part. I heard this. I think this is Jim Quick too, but practice makes progress, right?
Yeah, I like that. Yeah,
I like that too, and that's what I was teaching. My daughter picked up on it because she was younger, but she was able to pick that up pretty quick, and so you don't hear that practice makes perfect because you're never going to be perfect, so you might as well keep striving to just be better, right?
Right.
But that's how I look at it. But
and excellence is a goal. We all want to be excellent, but they call us practicing artists for a reason because we're always practicing. I watch videos all the time. I'm always expanding, and I've been doing this for decades, longer than you've been alive, I'm sure. And now I'm just, there's always more to learn and try. And that's the fun thing to do is just find out what's fun to you and do it.
Yeah, no, you're right. Exactly. Yeah. And enjoy it. Hey, Karen, I know you mentioned the pop-up podcast. How can somebody else connect with you, whether it's like classes or just
Yeah.
talk about being creative, an artist, whatever it is that you're, opening to share and help others?
Absolutely. Karen DeLoach'sart.com is my website. But, if you do the podcast, the pop-up podcast, it gives you ways to reach me, make appointments, get a free call with me with Calendly is on the pop-up podcast. And that's kind of fun to just listen to and get some more ideas on how you can have a happier life, a more fulfilled, more fun life. When you parent, that there's a lot of things you're doing that because it's fun for them, and you realize, wow, it's fun for me too. Right? I mean,
Absolutely. This is great. I wasn't sure, where we're going to go with this, but this is awesome. And we probably can keep on talking about it. You might have to come back on sometime, because I'm curious to learn more about the videos, everything you're doing to help other people in other countries. I just have one question before I ask what I ask every other guest, but have you ever thought, or are you like doing virtual where you can help like kids in like a hospital or something that are having problems where they...
No, I haven't done anything like that. I've been to some old folks' homes.
Okay.
Some of them are younger than me, but you know what I mean? Yeah. Or retirement facilities. I've done live in-person sessions for those kind of facilities. And they do have in hospitals, people who are trained for it that are art therapists.
Okay.
I'm coming way more left brain than that. I mean, right brain than that.
Yeah, you know more than I do, because I have no idea. I don't know what goes on. But yeah, so the question I ask everybody is, what are 3 key things you learned and used along your journey?
What 3 key things? Probably number 1 is my faith. I had a Christian roommate who prayed for her bohemian artist roommate for 3 years, and I found I wasn't enough. That what I'd been raised by an atheist father, and who'd been damaged in the church and really tried to bring me up to be a communist almost, but he didn't succeed, because there was something in me that said, no, I can't do and be anything I want to be. I need more. I need to know more. And that sweet young woman brought me to a meeting where somebody told me, that I needed Jesus. And that was probably the most important change of my life. And it's changed everything about who I am and what I live for. And brought so much joy and peace in my life. And through that, being part of community that's all about mutual support, really giving to others is the way to have a fulfilled life. If your business isn't about helping others, informing others, making their lives better, then your life isn't going to be fulfilled. So that's a guiding principle for me and my whole family. We've taken in homeless people our whole lives. My husband has a great story. We got a book we're working on called An Unlikely Romance. He came from a lifestyle that was very unhealthy in multiple ways, and we watched what God could do in us. And so that's a driving factor of my life. And then keeping your mind awake and alert to what's going on as much as possible, and finding joy and in every day. What brings you joy every day? And one thing that I know helps every person if they're trying something new is to have grace for yourself. The same kind of grace you'd give to your child as you're teaching them to tie their shoes for the first time, or brush their teeth with an electric toothbrush, or whatever the patience and the grace that you have for them, give for yourself when you're trying something new.
That's great. Yeah, a lot of people don't do that. That's for sure. They start something and then they just stop because they're like, either A, it's too much, or they're just not perfect. That's how I see it. So, I mean, you and I probably wouldn't be talking today like this if we considered ourselves, we wanted to be perfect, and we wouldn't continue,
Right.
So, this is great. Yeah, they're all great 3 things. I'll be honest with you, I heard faith a lot more than anything else as I keep doing the podcast.
Wow.
And I'm sharing that because I hear on the other side that it's fading away, right? So, where people don't have any faith. So it's maybe it's just who you attract after a while, and it's just people that come on. I don't know, but yes, faith definitely can carry somebody lifting off the weight on yourself and putting it out there, and things will change for the better. Karen, I'm glad we got to meet. Yeah, and you came on, and you know, I'm excited to see where you go with everything you've been doing, helping others, you know, using their both sides of the brain if you can make it work, you know, which is great. So, but thank you. I appreciate coming on.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Blessings. Bye-bye.
Bye.